It is a great time on the Damage Report when we get to show to you and get to know a candidate running in a primary, working to push the Democratic Party in the right direction. And we have such a candidate joining us now for Pennsylvania's 3rd District. Alexandra Hunt joins us on the Damage Report. Alexandra, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Glad to have you here. We've got a contested primary against Dwight Evans. Primary date is gonna be May 17th. Tell me a little bit about the decision to launch a primary bid against a sitting Democratic incumbent.
Yeah, absolutely. So my decision really happened in a single moment, but I can tell you leading up to that I was very politically active and involved in our community. When the pandemic first struck, I shifted my schedule. I was working at Fox Chase Cancer Center, and I flexed my schedule so that I could be out in the community as much as possible, helping to get out relief. My background's in public health, so I was helping to test people with COVID-19 at the very beginning and then later vaccinate. I was helping to get out menstrual items because a lot of our school age girls, rely on schools for menstrual items, and our schools shut down. So we were getting that out into the community. And then I was also doing food distribution. And I was at a food distribution site, and I was just looking at how long the line was with people who were food insecure in our neighborhood. And I thought, they're not coming to help us. And that was when I decided to run for office. I started to look into who was sitting in the seat, and I found somebody complacent with the status quo. And that's not what's going to work for this moment of crises. So I decided to run against him.
Awesome. So there you're talking mainly about your experience in public health, and Dwight Evans, the incumbent. In this area, how has he basically done? Has he been a good advocate in terms of taking the pandemic seriously? And are there any other what you would see as core distinctions between you and the approach towards representation of Dwight Evans?
Yeah, there's quite a few core distinctions, and I wouldn't say that he didn't take the pandemic not seriously. However, one of the major distinctions is our platform on healthcare, and I am running on what we all know as Medicare for All, but it's essentially healthcare is a human right, and that every person should be covered from birth until death with a healthcare system that centers the need for care and doesn't make profit from it. He ran on universal healthcare when he initially ran for this seat. And once he got into office, he took private health insurance money and he backed out of the Medicare for All caucus and does not support it. So that's a really big distinction in how there is potential to respond to a pandemic and how there's not. And he isn't advocating for universal healthcare. So I wouldn't say that he doesn't take the pandemic seriously, but there's a limit to how far he'll go in advocating for a full and proper response.
That is interesting. I didn't actually know that he had previously been in favor of that. Obviously, money can certainly change things. Well, what is your approach to campaign finance in terms of where you're focusing on for your money, other sources of money that you're refusing to accept?
Yes, we are 100% grassroots funded. It's small dollar donation. Our average contribution is $30. And we have I think we're at about close to 8,000 donors. And he is number 37 in Democrats of who takes corporate money. He takes over half of his campaign contributions come from corporations. And that's really where he caters his attention and his advocacy. Whereas being grassroots funded, while it's harder, it makes us able to center the needs of the people and to only speak to that rather than having that conflict of corporations versus people.
This might seem like it's jumping ahead a little bit, but I am curious about your thoughts about another aspect of how money can potentially influence elected representatives. Over the past year or two, there's been a renewed conversation about some sort of restrictions or ban on individual stock ownership and trading by our elected representatives. If you were to take over this seat, what would your approach be to that topic?
I fully agree that congressional reps should be banned from trading stocks and that it's insider trading and it's very corrupt. That's something that my opponent got caught up in recently. He violated the Stock Act. He also is heavily invested in the in weapons manufacturers and fossil fuel industry. And I think that it does influence, again, the advocacy that one can have in a position of power for the needs of the people versus your own personal self-interest in making money while you're in office.
Yeah, and in particular, those two industries that you identified that he owns stock in, like these are very, I mean, they're never not important, but right now we're dealing with an invasion that's happening right now. Gas prices are high. We know that the Biden administration is rethinking a lot of their approaches to fossil fuels. I would want to feel as a voter that my representative was approaching these topics caring about the results, not caring about what effect a vote one way or the other might have on their own personal financial portfolio. So yeah, I would worry about that. But I'm interested, you talked there about one of the major distinctions having to do with your approach to universal health care. What are some of the other distinctions that you're centering your campaign on?
Well, we just mentioned it, that I'm not invested in fossil fuels at all or weapons manufacturers at all. And so that does cloud someone's judgment in how they're going to vote on legislation. And criminal justice reform is another very big area that we differentiate in. And that is because I'm pushing forward for restorative justice and for rehabilitating people and acknowledging that people make mistakes throughout their lifetime and that they shouldn't be punished for the rest of their lives. Whereas he's really tough on crime and focuses on broken windows policing, which we have seen throughout in Philadelphia and across the country, that this really doesn't work, and it creates a cycle of trauma that can drag down a community, which we're currently grappling with. Another big area that we contrast in is in education. A big push for our platform is to federally fund public education. Whereas when he was in the state house, he defunded public education, which we are now grappling with in this district. He founded his own charter school and has been a leader in the charter school movement.
Oh my God. Okay, I was not actually familiar with that, man. If we're talking about things that could potentially financially influence your votes, being the owner of a charter school, it is amazing what you're able to get away with in elected office. I did want to talk about something that I saw on your social media recently. Some of your volunteers who were doing signature gathering apparently had an issue with the police being called on them. What is that all about?
Yeah, I was there too.
Oh, you were there. Okay. Well, what
Yeah,
happened?
it's just this total double standard that his people are allowed to be within the buildings, are allowed to be present in public spaces. Petitioning is a First Amendment right, and so the security guard is associated with my opponent and was trying to push us out of the area from petitioning, and called the police, and the police did show up, and I started talking about constitutional rights and the First Amendment, and they said, okay, you do have a right to be here, and they backed off and they explained it to the security guard. But since then, every time we cross paths with that same group that's petitioning for my opponent, they really harass anyone who is trying to sign our petitions. It's become very toxic. So we're trying to find different areas because that's not how we're going to be running this race, but it does make it very hard.
That is very disappointing.
Yeah.
I want to ask you one other question, and I apologize, it might seem a little bit weird. I like to get an idea of what if we were past this primary, like with all that's going on right now in the news, the state of the Democratic control of the House, what the Democrats are doing, what they're not doing. Let's say that you were not running in this primary right now. You're already in the seat. This week, what would you be doing? What would you consider your job to be this week if you were holding the seat?
Well, the first thing that I plan on getting to office is power mapping the current Congress and seeing what influences people and what not. So really having that sort of understanding, I don't think I can just jump into being past that and having that grasp of where influence is coming from. But a big mission of mine is to make sure that we had a hospital close recently in Philadelphia in the district. that was extremely hurtful for our population. So figuring out how to get that back open and how to get healthcare into the district where people can either have healthcare or have a plan that actually covers their needs, because 50% of PA3 is not a public option or without healthcare, and it's something that's really hurting us right now.
That's interesting. No, I appreciate that answer. That is interesting. And obviously we've seen some progressive reps move in and then have to navigate the way that things are done and who holds the power and how you get things advanced and everything. Are there any current office holders that you see as potentially natural ideological allies for some of the things that you want to work on if you get the seat?
I think that I will be collaborating with the squad. I am trying to have power in numbers to influence some legislation. I think that I am very much aligned with Bernie Sanders and intend to work with him in the Senate. And then I think we have to see how things play out in the midterms. I know that a lot of progressives are running across the country, and I'm hoping that they make it. I think that there's a good chance that we could, and we could really win big. And so with that, our numbers will swell and we'll be able to really push for legislation as a team.
Okay, well, we here at the Damage Report certainly hope to see it. You've got a couple of months until the primary, May 17th. Between now and then, if people are watching this and they want to get involved with the campaign, how can they do that?
They can head to our website, huntforcongress.com, sign up to volunteer, give a grassroots contribution. We're always accepting. And you can check out our merch. It's store.alexandramhunt.com and see if there's anything you like there.
Awesome. Alexandra Hunt, thank you so much for taking time out and joining us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you very much for having me.
For more political news breakdowns, interviews, stories of activism, and me trying my hardest to care about the occasional big celebrity news story, subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/thedamagereport. And you can ring the bell wherever it is so you don't miss anything.